we talk about networking, and networking really has to do with making connections with other people. And I've known Peggy for several years now, and today is the first time I realized she was a Toastmaster. Because I've met her in many different settings, but none of them were Toastmasters, except she reminded me that I actually introduced her at a conference once. But I still didn't know that she was a Toastmaster. I don't know if we had met before then. Maybe we hadn't actually met. I must have just been given a script and said, here, you introduce this speaker. But Basile wanted me to talk about speaking skills and networking. I was on a business meeting last week up at Geico, up in Chevy Chase. And I'm in the lobby with my colleagues, and we're waiting for our host to come down and get us. And someone came up to me and said, I know you, you're in Toastmasters. And it was really interesting because Maryland is not part of our local district. And yet, as you're networking, as you're out there in front of people, they get to know you. So I wanted to talk today, I keep going the wrong way, about a couple of things. I wanted to talk about impromptu speaking, and I wanted to talk about elevator speeches, which to some degree can be prepared in advance, but which also can take the form of impromptu speaking. There are 5 things, and you have this all in your handout. There are 5 things you have to keep in mind when you are speaking with people on an impromptu setting. The first thing you need to do is you need to listen to them. And then after they tell you what it is they're going to talk about, you need to pause and take in what you're saying. For example, you're having a conversation, because that's what impromptu speaking is, right? It's a conversation. You're speaking to someone, it's not scripted, and they're telling you something. And if you just spit out an answer right away, have you given yourself time to process what it is they've told you? If you pause for a few seconds before you respond, they will realize that you're thinking and processing and giving them a thoughtful response. Then you confirm what they said. You repeat it back to you. This is what we're all taught is active listening. You repeat back, but you repeat it in your own words so they know you heard them. Then you tell them your response, and then you wrap up the conversation. Now I look up here and somebody said, how do I talk to people without inserting myself into the conversation, without being too assertive? When I first got here, I walked over to that middle table, and they were in the middle of a conversation. You can all hear me, right? They were in the middle of a conversation, and so I stood here, because it wasn't a personal, private conversation. They're at a networking event, and not whispering in somebody's ear. And I stood here, and I started listening, and nobody looked at me and said, what? And then there was a pause in the conversation, and I was able to participate. 5 years ago, there is no way I would have been able to do that. I would have come in, I would have gotten my coffee, I would have sat at my seat in the back, whether they told me to sit back there like Basile did today or not, and I would have kept to myself, and I would have been texting or checking my emails or whatever, but I never would have gone up to that table and just stood there and started a conversation. And I think this is what you were talking about. So how do you start these conversations? Before you can start the conversations, you need to be comfortable with what you're going to do during these conversations, right? You don't want to just go up there and just shake and not say anything. So you sort of have to have this plan of attack. And the plan of attack is easier if you have a strategy. You listen to the conversation, you process what they're saying, then you confirm it. So we were talking about making decisions about what you eat, or how you make changes in your life if you're going to diet or whatever. And so I made a comment, I asked a question. Did this particular action cause you to feel this way or this way? So I listened, I processed, and then I confirmed what I had heard by asking a question that was a natural extension of the conversation that was going on. Then I gave them a personal story, and then we ended that part of the conversation. Strategy in my head when I went up, not knowing what it was the conversation was going to be about when I first went to the table. Does that make sense? Okay. When you're having an impromptu conversation, there are 4 main strategies that you can use if you are introducing the topic. You can express an opinion. I really think this weather is awful. Or, I really like your tie. I saw a movie last week that I'm not sure I liked. Or, you can address cause and effect. I have a headache because the music is so loud coming from the room next door. Or, I'm really glad I'm here because Basile provided really good breakfast. It's the cause and effect. People can relate to these kinds of conversations. Okay. You can break the conversation into components. In other words, you're going to talk about your last vacation. So maybe you can start about what happened on your way to the trip. Then you can talk about what happened while you were there. Then you can talk about your trip home. Or you can do past, present, future. In other words, in your mind, when you're telling somebody something, there sort of needs to be a logical progression of the story that you're telling. So these are other techniques that you can use. I learned once upon a time, if I thought I had to start a conversation, to wear a funky pair of earrings, or to wear a scarf, something that I could play with so that it might draw attention. And then somebody says, oh, I really like your earrings. And then I can say, oh, my daughter bought those for me when she was on a trip to Croatia. Something to start a conversation, so that if the conversation lagged, I could start one by doing something really subtle that somebody else would pick up on. And generally, by the way, it's women who will pick up on that more than men. Or at least who will say something about that. Okay. All right. All right. But whatever you do, you have to be confident, or at least pretend, at least come across as being confident. You need to be brief because you don't want to dominate the conversation. And you need to be sincere, because we're all adults and we're all out there in the world, and we can tell when somebody is trying to pull the wool over our eyes, right? You need to be sincere. Does all of this make sense? Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have a question in terms of kind of stopping yourself when you're talking. Kind of like not go on and go on and on and on about yourself. Something like that. Kind of like.
Sort of like the run-on sentence, right? I have a tendency to keep going because I want to make sure that people really know what I'm talking about. And so I'll answer a question, and then I'll say some more, and then I'll say some more. And we need to know when enough is enough. There are a couple of things you can do. We have this thing in Toastmasters, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, called table topics. Table topics are a chance for you to practice impromptu speaking. You get up, I give you a prompt, a question you need to answer, or a phrase you need to respond to, and you have to talk for 1 to 2 minutes. The first time you do this, 1 minute takes forever. Very few people actually get to 1 minute the first time they do it. You have no idea how long 1 minute is. I see people, there are some Toastmasters in the room, they're nodding their heads. By practicing giving responses in a specific period of time, you become knowledgeable of, okay, how long is a minute? How long is 2 minutes? And depending on the kinds of answers you want to give, you might want to time yourself for 40 seconds. If somebody asks you a question, you might say, well, gee, I don't like listening to other people go on and on and on. 40 seconds is about my attention span. So I'm going to try to practice answering questions within 40 seconds. Whatever that period of time is, if you practice within that period of time, I don't know if any of you noticed, I didn't listen to Peggy and I actually brought up my phone because I don't want to run over. So if you time yourself, then you learn, it's sort of like muscle memory. You sort of learn how long is whatever period of time you're practicing. And then that's a way that you can shorten it. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am. That's an interesting question. Without snoring, you mean, right?
I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I was going to suggest you could do that with a question during the pause.
Right.
For clarification.
Exactly. Be ready with a question. And a question is good because it's returning the conversation to them, right? So you're not stealing the conversation from them, but you're forcing them to focus on what it is you are interested in. For example, if somebody is going on and on and on about their vacation and the trouble that they had at the airport and the details, yes, the details. One way to do this is to interrupt and say, that sounds awful. How did you feel? And all of a sudden, they're telling you how they felt, and the details are gone, because now they're no longer talking about the step by step by step by step. But you have that question in mind. That's very good. Another way to do it is to say, boy, do I empathize with that. The last time I went to New York, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't steal the conversation from them if it's supposed to be a conversation. And if these are people that you know go on and on and on, when you start the conversation, you can say, hey, it's great to see you. I only have a minute. Tell me real quick what's been going on with you. And then if the conversation is interesting, you can say, you know, that's really interesting. I'm going to be late to my next event. Keep going. But it's practice. All of these techniques are practice. And if you don't practice, they're not going to be natural. Yes? Yes.
So I've been in a situation where the person keeps asking questions, and every time I want to ask a question, they keep asking questions. So it was hard for me to kind of ask a question. We having a conversation,
Right.
then it was more like an energy. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a network, and I want to get to know yourself, but I didn't know how to do that. It was really.
Did everybody hear what she said? She's at a networking event and somebody's talking to her and they're asking her a question and then she answers it. And then they ask her another question and then she answers it. And then she asks her another question and she answers it. She wants to ask them a question because she wants to get to know them. I was reading a book the other day and somebody was talking about a first date. And they said, you know those first dates that feel like job interviews? Right? They're asking a question, they want an answer. I'd never heard that expression before. I thought that was great. Of course, I've been married for 30 years. It's been a long time since I've dated. I think what I would probably do if that were the situation is I would answer a question but not stop. So for example, what's the last trip you went on? I travel a lot, so that's what's in my head. So I'm asking you, what's your last trip? You said, my last trip was to New York. What was yours? So in other words, tie the question into your answer. So I went to New York. Well, now you're leaving me an opening to ask another question. I went to New York, but I'm more interested in hearing what you did. Or I went to New York, but I've been doing all the talking. Why don't you tell me about when you went? Those kinds of things. And then if you use the expression, but I've been doing all the talking, then they're saying, oh, gee, this person is really interested in what I have to say. It's not that they just want to dominate the conversation.
So you're saying I
Why not? Sure. I don't think that's rude. It's probably rude if you say, you're doing all the talking, right? But if I'm saying I'm doing all the talking, that's putting it on me. I'm so bad, I'm dominating this conversation. Let me give you a chance to say something. Okay? So put it on you. It never hurts to take blame or responsibility, especially in a situation like this, so that the other person says, oh, this person realizes that they're doing all the talking. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's pertinent to this, but one time I was doing one-on-one with somebody, and she was really trying to sell me whatever she was doing instead of listening and exchanging ideas.
And that's what I was talking about on that earlier slide, right? You listen and then you pause. So she's trying to sell. So I was here this morning and I was talking about Toastmasters. And some people here are Toastmasters, and some people said, oh, that sounds really good. And of course I want to sell it, but I want to sell it because I believe in it. But I don't want to sell it because I'm not here to sell it. I'm here to help you and hopefully learn from you and network with you, but not to sell. And sometimes that happens. People are trying to sell you on something, but that was not the purpose of the event. So depending on the situation, you could be upfront with them and say, I appreciate the fact that you're on commission or you have to sell or you believe in your product, but I'm not in a place right now where I can make a purchasing decision, or I don't have the authority to recommend, or thanks, this is really interesting, but it's not something I need right now. Yeah. And if you don't do that, they will never stop. Right? It's like those telemarketers. They will never stop. And for some people, that's their job, right? Their job is to sell whatever it is they're supposed to sell. I'm supposed to sell Toastmasters. I'm the program quality director, and next year I'll be the district director. My job is to sell Toastmasters, but not today, not here. Okay. Yes? Phew. Yep, right. And didn't I say you have to be sincere? You have to be sincere. I'm not selling you a timeshare. No, you're not going to get a free television. I remember there was a time where, this was over 30 years ago, it was before I was married, somebody was trying to sell a timeshare and you went for this thing, and they would give you this portable black and white television as your thank you for if you bought. It's the most, so you're spending $6,000 or $12,000 on this timeshare. It's a really expensive TV, if you think about it, right? So, but you're right. You don't want to do a hard sell in a situation like this. That doesn't mean you're not here to tell what your company does, because that's why you're here, right? We're networking for business purposes. But networking is not selling. It's developing those relationships that get you in the door so that you can then make your sales pitch. I hope I'm not stealing somebody's presentation for later. Okay. Does that make sense? All right. Any other questions so far? Okay. Elevator speeches. Okay. What is an elevator speech? It's also called an elevator pitch. It's called an elevator statement. It's a really short summary that you use to quickly and simply define a process, a product, a service, an organization, or an event, and its value proposition. That second part, or that last part, the value proposition, is very important. Because otherwise, why should I care? Peggy said, I provide technical credentials, da-da-da-da-da. Well, so what? Who cares? It's important that you explain why you're doing this. Why is this important? We're doing it because nobody else is, and we see that there's a need in the market. There's my value proposition, okay? Or we can do it for you more quickly and less expensively than anybody else. Those are value propositions. And in a minute, we're going to talk about various types of elevator speeches. Because I think everybody really needs to have 4 different elevator speeches. But I have a little YouTube video that I want to show you. It's, I don't know, can you, if I, oh, okay. I want to show you this YouTube video. I think this is a fabulous example of what to do and what not to do in an elevator speech. And this is literally an elevator speech, takes place in an elevator, okay? Because that's why they're called elevator speeches. You only have a minute with somebody in an elevator, right, before they leave. And so you want to be able to make your pitch in a very brief period of time. Okay. I'll just set the scene for you while he brings up the video. A college president gets into the elevator, and a variety of students, one at a time, get in the elevator with him. And this video shows the different ways they engage with him, or in some cases don't engage with him. I hate being on video, which is why I'm standing like this now. Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to talk about different kinds of elevator speeches. Okay. Here we go. You could start it from where it is. We just need to switch the view.
While we're fiddling with technical stuff, I'm going to see if I can get the drink pulled.
Oh, okay. It's really the conversations more than the visual. I wouldn't worry too much about this. But I came across this video and I just thought it was super. And the nice thing about it is that it also appeals to a younger audience, because this is taking place on a college campus. It's hard to find resources sometimes that fit the whole gamut of the ages of the people who are going to watch it. Here we go. Okay, excellent. It's less than 3 minutes. There's your university president.
Yeah, no, the last semester went okay. I'm really looking forward to this one a little bit more, but, you know, in a general sense. Operations is going much better than any of my other classes last semester. I'm looking forward to how that turns out. And, I mean, I just can't believe, especially, money and banking, please, you know, I do what I do. Oh, hang on. I'm in the elevator with President Oldham right now. I didn't even, okay, hang on. No, stop, no, okay. Hey. And I mean, if you've got anybody in the College of Business or anybody that knows, if you need a qualified professional, somebody that will actually get the job done well, then you know what? You know who to talk to. All right, so, okay.
Oh my God, hi, I'm Chris. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, President Oldham. I'm a College of Business ambassador, and I like art and painting and wakeboarding. My mom is like our biggest fan. Can we take a picture together really quick? Will you hold it? Take our picture? Your arms are longer.
Okay. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'll send it to her. Okay. So, how are things? How's the First Lady, the kids? You know, y'all just say cheese?
Sure.
So, what are your plans as president?
Well,
What was it? Have you met Awesome Eagle? He's really cool. I like your shoes. They're really shiny. Do you shine them yourself? You're the president. I bet you have somebody to do that for you.
That's cool.
You're just the nicest guy. Oh, this is my floor. I'll see you later.
Hey, President Oldham.
Hello.
My name is Jessica Terrell.
Hey, Jessica.
I'm a College of Business ambassador, and I'm also on the speech and debate team. I have some great ideas that could really help this college. I know you're a very busy man, but I would love to let you hear them.
I'd love to hear them. I'm just headed to lunch. I was going to grab a quick bite. You want to go talk now?
Yes, thank you. I love the opportunity.
That'd be great.
What do you think? A big difference, right? To be prepared with this elevator speech? All right. Let's see if we can get back to my PowerPoint. Oh, thanks. All right. Anyway, that was the best video I saw. I thought that really illustrated, because you can really put yourself in the position of all of those people. Although I don't know about the gentleman in the scarf. I'm not sure I could do that. I don't know that I'd say, oh, I really like your shoes. Do you shine them yourself? I mean, but you get nervous, right? We were talking before. You get nervous. And so what do? You prepare. So these are the types of elevator speeches I think everybody needs to have. Okay? You need to have one that's work-related. You need to have one that's networking, that you would use in a situation like this. You need to have one for social events. And you need to have one if you're looking for a job or you're interviewing. So I want to talk about each of these for a minute. What's work-related? So today I'm here to represent Toastmasters, and so I have to be able to explain what Toastmasters is in 1 to 2 minutes. So what is Toastmasters? It's an international organization that is dedicated to helping people become better communicators and leaders. We have 3 districts in the Washington, D.C. area. The district that I'm responsible for is west of the Beltway out to Front Royal, down to Fredericksburg. Meetings are divided into 3 sections: prepared speeches, impromptu speaking, and evaluations. 3 sentences, 4 sentences. And now hopefully you have an idea of what Toastmasters' purpose is and where it's located. Does that make sense? So my business, for example, somebody does graphic design or marketing communication, okay. So you have a 3-sentence elevator speech. Hi, my name is such and such. I'm with such and such and such marketing and communications consultant. My job is to work with small businesses and entrepreneurs to help them market and develop their businesses. I provide web services, graphic design, and scripts that you can use if you're trying to cold call, something like that. 2 or 3 sentences so people know what you do. And then they'll start asking you questions. And then the impromptu speaking comes. Does that make sense? Good. Right. The next is networking. And there's a relationship between work-related and networking. So work-related is you're at a work-related function, event. Networking is you're in a situation like this. And there's overlap. But you may be networking not because you want to sell your business. You may be networking because you may want to see what they're doing, because maybe you need what they need, what they provide, or you might want to switch careers. So there'd be a subtle difference. Instead of selling your business, you'd say, hi, my name is Jackie, and I do this, and instead of saying this is what my business does, you'd say, this is what I do. I'm a web specialist, communication graphic designer, and I can do this, and I do this, and I do this. Do you hear the difference between selling your company or talking about what your company does and what your specific personal skills are? Okay? So instead of talking about Toastmasters for me, I would say, hi, I'm Amy Brenner, and I like to go out and talk in front of groups and help them become better networkers, help them develop elevator speeches. So now I'm sort of talking about what I do as opposed to what my organization does. So that's the difference there. That makes sense? Okay. Yes? No? Why?
Of course, you said this, the networking and the
Yep.
That way it'll be in the video as well.
So you said the work related and networking, I kind of related. I just feel like it looks the same introduction you just give looks so similar. I don't see any difference. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't follow up very well.
So the difference is, are you selling your business or are you selling you?
So in my networking, I'm selling myself.
Right, right.
Like working there, I'm selling my business. I'm selling my business or my services.
You're selling your services as opposed to your company services. Okay. So for example, I'm at a business event, okay? And I used to work at George Mason University, and I was working in a program called 4VA. There were 4 universities involved in this: George Mason, James Madison, Virginia Tech, and the University of Virginia. And I would go to a work-related function, and I would be representing 4VA. So I would go and I would say, hi, I'm Amy Brenner, I'm the assistant director of 4VA, and 4VA is this collaboration among these 4 Virginia schools. Then I would be at an event, and I would be talking to somebody from one of these schools, and they would say, what do you do? And I would say, I'm with George Mason, and I'm the director of information technology or whatever, and I would do X, Y, and Z, director of global projects. And I'm talking more about myself than my company. So it depends on the conversation. And we are tied to what we do, right? We're tied to our companies. And so there's a lot of overlap. But there's a difference in terms of the elevator speech you're going to give. Is the speech going to be about your company, or is the speech going to be about you?
And I'm sorry if I'm
No, that's okay.
interrupting. What if you own the business? Like,
If you own the business, then they're going to be more closely intertwined. Right.
so in my case, I'm a business owner.
Right.
So I want to talk about what I do. My services is also tied to
Yes. Right. Right. And that's why I'm saying they can be very closely related. Absolutely. Right. All right. Then you have social events. That was what I hated. I was so uncomfortable. In this job with George Mason, I would be at a cocktail party with the governor and the secretary of education and presidents and provosts and VPITs, vice presidents, information technology, from these 4 major universities. And who am I? I'm just this little peon in a room with these people, and I had to make a conversation. And what do you do? Because you can't just hold on to the coattails of your boss who brought you there, right? You have to go up and make and participate in conversations with people that you don't know. And it was those social events. I work for the Casualty Actuarial Society, which is the association that credentials property and casualty actuaries. And these actuaries are extremely bright. Many of them have PhDs in statistics. And they do all sorts of modeling and all sorts of really cool technical stuff that I don't understand. And when I'm on a conversation with them, sometimes it literally is Greek to me. And we're at this cocktail event before a dinner at a meeting, and people are making small talk. Now, if I'm making small talk, right, that's impromptu speaking, I'm talking about a movie, I'm talking about a book that I read, I'm talking about what my kids are up to. This one gentleman is talking about weather models at a cocktail party. I work with weather models, and the wheat crop in Kansas is not doing well because of this trend in weather. And I'm saying to myself, this is a cocktail party. And then the woman he's talking to says, I am so aggravated with our state insurance inspector. The person who heads this up has no clue what's in, and I'm saying to myself, this is a cocktail party. These are not people that I would like to go out to dinner with if this is how they're going to have a conversation, right? So we need to learn how to network at a social event, and it's not the same. You have to learn how to talk about things outside your work environment. And we lose sight of that. These people certainly lost sight of that. And then the fourth thing is, if you're looking for a job, you need to pitch yourself at these types of events, okay? So you're selling your business, but let's say you work for a company and the company, it's just not working out for you. So now you don't want to talk to Jackie about your business, you want to talk to Jackie about you, because maybe she needs you or she knows that somebody else needs somebody with those skills. So you have to have different elevator pitches for different situations, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Any questions? So far, so good? Yes, sir.
Could you go into the social events a little more? I know it's more impromptu, I guess, but how
Sure.
just to approach those situations, like, and set yourself up.
I was at a social event, a formal social event, downtown in some big hall. There was an international organization giving awards out for something, and I was there representing 4VA. 4VA was getting an award. My boss was getting the award, not the big award, but an award, and I was her +1. So we went to this event, and this is formal, and these are heads of major corporations and heads of NGOs and heads of people who are doing all sorts of innovative things, and that's what we were winning this award for. And so I'm in this room with all these really fancy people, which is not me. I had to go shopping for clothes for this event. And I didn't know anybody. I knew my boss. But she was talking to the major award winner because the two of them went way back, right? So I didn't know anybody. So what do you do in that that's what you're asking, right? What do you do in that kind of event? Well, what I would do today is really different from what I did then. But what I would do today is I would go up to a group, and generally I think it's better if it's a group of 3 or 4 as opposed to a group of 2. Because if it's 2, it could be like a real private conversation. But if it's a group of 3 or 4, they're probably not necessarily all there together, and even if they are, it's not like, a double date. So I would just go up and with my drink and just be interested. And listen to what they're saying. And at an appropriate time, I would insert myself into the conversation. And it's not easy. And it's especially not easy the first time you do it, or the second, or the third. Okay? But it's practice. It's like everything else. It's practice. So speaking of practice, we're going to do a little practice. Table topics. I talked about this before. It's a long-standing Toastmasters tradition that's intended to help members develop their ability to organize their thoughts quickly and respond to an impromptu question or topic. I need a victim. I need a victim up here. I want to volunteer. There she is. Nope. Basile, she volunteered before you even said that. Come on. All right. And we never laugh at you unless you give a funny response, right? Unless it's deliberate. Okay. I'm going to time you. 1 to 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to talk for 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. And I'm going to make it an easy question. Okay? What is your favorite restaurant to go out to and why? What is your favorite restaurant to go out to and why?
Well, I love to go to, I went to GW, so this restaurant, I love it. It's because it's very cheap. At that time, I was really broke. I didn't have a lot of money. It's a sandwich place. It's called Elevation Burger. Yeah. So, and they have, I'm a very picky person. So they have homemade fries. So I'm a vegan. So because it's homemade, and they always list everything they put in their food. So I want to read what I'm eating. So that's why I go there. That's one of the biggest, the primary reason I go there. And also, it's cheaper. I could afford it. So, what? Oh, the other thing, well, I'm a very social person. I like to talk a lot. So I will offer, because it's cheap, I can invite a couple of my friends to come with me so I can offer that. So, and I grew up eating in a big family setting. So when I'm by myself, I forget to eat. So inviting people to come eating with me, and I'm still doing that. That's why I love that restaurant. I could afford it and bring them over so we can talk, just so they can sit with me and eat, so I can have something in my stomach for the day.
Excellent. All right. Well done. When she first stopped, she was at 50 seconds. Didn't I tell you it's hard to get to a minute? She actually got to a minute and a half. So well done, well done. Was that hard? Very, well, I'm trying to pick an easy question. All right. One more victim. I'll pick you if you don't come up here. All right. So, Nicole, I thought I heard you say you were an attorney. I am. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to ask you an attorney question, but not a hard attorney question. Nicole, I understand you're an attorney. Would you tell me, please, where you went to law school, what kind of law you practice, and whether or not you like it?
Excellent question. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I was actually, when I grew up in North Carolina, I was a Duke fan. So you can imagine when I got accepted to UNC Chapel Hill, I had to change my affiliation. I always wanted to be a lawyer, or at least I thought I did until I became a lawyer. And I originally went to law school to do public interest, but I decided to go into the federal government system at the Department of Labor. I had not originally wanted to do employment and labor work. I kind of fell into it because that's the job I got. But I actually really like it because you get to interact with companies and businesses. Now that I work for Jackson Lewis, we help employers solve their employee problems, essentially. And I get to help employers interact with their employees, determine how to pay them, what leave to give them, what policies and procedures to implement, and also how to deal with their difficult employees. I get calls all the time about, this just happened. I have no idea what to do. You know, can we terminate this person? Can we put them on leave? And there are special rules related to that. So, you know, every day is a different day, so every day you'll get a different answer about why I like it or not, but today I love it, so thanks.
Thank you. A minute and 15, perfect. Perfect, all right. All right, that wasn't so hard, was it? As long as you have somebody who gives you an easy question, you're okay. All right. All right, so we talked a little bit today about impromptu speaking. We talked a little bit about elevator speeches. My suggestion to you is to go home and write an elevator speech. Some people say it has to be under X number of words. Some people say it should be one sentence. 3 sentences, I think, is pretty good, okay? So go home and write at least one elevator speech for the situation that you find yourself most uncomfortable in. If it's a social setting, write an elevator speech that has nothing to do with work, except maybe to mention what you do. If you're uncomfortable selling your services, write an elevator speech that sells your services. It won't be perfect the first time, or the third time, maybe not even the 20th time. But use it and practice it, and before you know it, you'll be able to give these elevator speeches in a variety of settings without having to even think about it, because it's like everything else, it's practice. And if you practice, you'll get more comfortable at all of these techniques. And before you know it, you'll be up here giving this presentation, and I'll sit in the back and not talk to anybody. Thank you, Peggy.